Okay, the first thing I'm going to show you is one way to rapidly multiply a number by 5. Okay, first we're going to take the number and divide it in half. In other words, we're going to divide it by 2. We're then going to affix a 0 onto the end of that number. So our example is 5 times 58, which we could rewrite as 58 times 5. Now, if we take that number 58 and we divide it in half, if you have trouble doing that in your head, you could split that up into the numbers 50 and 8 and do them separately, which is what I do often in my head. So half of 50 is 25, half of 8 is 4. Together that's 29. So that's the number you're going to use, and then you're going to simply affix a 0 onto the end. So 58 times 5 equals 290. Okay, we'll do one more example of that. Our next example is 49 times 5. Now this one may be a little more difficult to do in your head to divide it in half. So again, we could split that up into 48 and 1. Half of 48 is 24, half of 1 is 0.5. Put it together is 24.5. Now we're going to look at that, and we have to add a 0, which is our next step, and then we're going to test for reasonableness. 49 times 5, 24.5 does not sound like a reasonable answer. So we look at the decimal, we move it over, and it's really due to adding that 0 on the end. We move the decimal point over, and the actual answer is 245. Okay. Next I'm going to show you how to divide by 5. Okay, the first step is to double the number to be multiplied by 5. In other words, multiply the number by 2 this time. Then we're going to test for reasonableness because we may have to affix a decimal point or a 0 to the end. Our first example is 41 divided by 5. We double the 41, which is 82. We test for reasonableness. 41 divided by 5, 82 does not seem reasonable. So we look and see if we can put a decimal point to make it make more sense. 8.2 times 5 is 41 if we go back and check. Or we can think of it as 40 divided by 5 is 8. So 8.2 makes more sense when we're talking about 41 divided by 5. Okay, we'll do one more example with that. If we have 4.6 divided by 5, now this time we're going to think of that as just the number 46, and then we'll deal with the decimal point afterwards. Okay, so think of the number being 46. Take half of 46. If you can't do that in your head, I'm sorry, not half of, we're going to multiply it by 2. If you can't do that in your head, take that and split it up into 40 and 6. Double each of them, which gives us 80 and 12. Put them back together is 92. Looking back at the original problem though, 4.6 divided by 5, 92 is way too large. So we are going to put our decimal point in front of the 9 because it should make more sense that it should be a little bit under 1. So 0.92 is the answer. Okay. Next thing we're going to learn how to do is square a number ending in 5. First thing to do is multiply the tens digit by its next whole number, and then we're going to simply affix a 25 to the end. Our example is 85 squared. Well, our tens digit is 8, so we're going to take that 8 and multiply it by 9, which is our next whole number. That gives us 72. And then the final step is to affix a 25 onto the end. Sorry. That gives us 7225, 7,225. Okay, another example would be 150 times 15. Cover this up. Now, we think of this as 15 times 15, and we can take into account the 0 afterwards. So think of it as 15 times 15, which is 15 squared. We take the tens digit, which is a 1, multiply it by the next whole number, which is 2. That gives us 2. And then we put a 25 on the end, and we look for reasonableness, but we have to take into account that 0 that we left off at the beginning. So we're going to put that back on there, and the answer is 2,250, which makes sense. Last example type is to multiply a 2-digit number by 11. Okay, first we're going to write the 2-digit number. We're going to leave some space in between those 2 digits. Then we're going to insert the sum of the number's digits, which means we're going to take those 2 digits and add them together and write it in the middle. So we have the example 11 times 92, which can be written as 92 times 11. So we're going to take the 9 and the 2 and write them down and leave a space in between. Now when we add those, we get an 11. The problem is we only want 1 digit in between there. So when we look at that 11, we're going to take that 1, which is in the tens digit of the 11, and we're going to carry it over to the 9 and add it to the 9. That makes it 10, and we have our 1 and then our 2 on the end. So our final answer is 1,012. One more example with that is right down here. I'm sorry about that. Okay. We have a 1.1 times 2.2, which it looks a little different than multiplying by 11. But again, we're going to think of it, we first switch it around, 2.2 times 1.1. We're going to think of it as 22 times 11. And again, we'll come back and deal with the decimals afterwards, decimal points. So we're going to take the 22 and split it apart. Then we're going to add those together, which gives us 4. We're going to put that in the middle. And then if you look at the arrow over, when we test for reasonableness, 242 is way too large. So if we think about, we have 2 decimal places over, so we're going to actually move that over 2 decimal places over for our answer, 2.42. And think about it, 2 times 1 is 2, so it makes sense that 2.2, which is a little more than 2, and 1.1, which is a little bit more than 1, would give us an answer of 2.42. And that's it. Thank you.